Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's training on finding balance, making choices to balance achievement and fulfillment. I'm Wendy Spurgeon, creator of the Way of Truth Sacred Journey Portal, and your facilitator for this evening's full moon webinar. I'm very excited to be speaking with you today. And supporting us with slides today is Shelley Chase, writer and life happiness coach.
So yay, Shelley.
Yay, Shelley. And I'm going to minimize these boxes in the corner so we can see the slides a little bit better. So today we're going to cover several key points about finding balance in your life that you can implement right away. And today's webinar is broken down into 4 sections. So part 1, what is work-life balance? We're going to define this concept, what it means to you, and some of the benefits of keeping your work and life in balance. Part 2, what are the consequences of work-life imbalance and the consequences of improving work-life balance? And next, we'll look at some consequences of the work-life imbalance and balance, and I'll share some interesting research with you that you can use as you consider your own work-life imbalance and balance. And then after that, I'm going to share a personal story with you about my own journey through imbalance into better balance. And then we'll go into part 3, what influences my work-life balance. We'll discuss the specific factors, negative and positive, internal and external, that are key to work-life balance. And then part 4, what can I do to improve my work-life balance? You're going to look at the external, external and internal positive and negative influences of your work-life balance. I see that we have a couple participants who've raised their hands. Let me see what's going on here. All right. We have, okay, we're good. I think I just need to lower your hands. Okay, there we go. All right, so ready to make a commitment. We're going to look at actions you can take to make these shifts. But before we jump in, we're going to take a minute or two and do some quick housekeeping so that we can ensure that we have a successful webinar. Please be respectful of others and keep background noise to a minimum. It's best to be in a place where there is no noise so that you can focus on the discussion at hand. Find your mute button and keep yourself muted unless you're sharing with the group. Say your name before you speak. We always like to know who we're hearing from. And be participative. This is a highly interactive webinar. It's not a passive learning webinar, and it is so much more valuable and fun when everyone gets involved. Okay. Let's get to it. What is work-life balance? Do you remember playing on the seesaw when you were little and how shifting on your seat or giving an extra push off from the ground would change the whole action of the seesaw? One of the dynamics at play with seesaw is balance. So to get started, let's bring some perspective to our own lives. I won't ask you to climb onto a seesaw, but I do want to ask you to think about the life you have lived up to this point and the remaining balance of the years ahead of you. Please do the following calculation in your head. Subtract your current age from 90. Add 2 zeros to the number. So I'm going to do that too. So give us a little time here. So subtract your current age from 90. Add 2 zeros to that number. And then divide that number by 2. That is roughly how many weeks you have left on this earth, assuming you live to a very ripe old age. Now, if you smoke or don't look after yourself properly, subtract 1,200 weeks from that. Okay. Now close your eyes and take a few slow, deep breaths and visualize the following. You are very near to the end of your life. You have a few minutes of consciousness remaining with which to peacefully look back over what you have achieved and what difference you've made in the world and how you will be remembered. So how do you want to be remembered? What did you do that mattered? What will you have done that will give you a truly good feeling at the end of your life? How have you best fulfilled your own unique potential? Whew. Is there anyone who would be willing to share what they came up with? And you can just unmute yourself and say your name. And there's no right or wrong, it's just a reflection. What was it like to actually come up with the number of weeks you had left on Earth? And
Okay, this is Holly.
Okay.
I would like to be able to say that I finally achieved authenticity and stopped being phony. That's my big goal.
That's your big goal. That's your big, wildly important goal too. And so authenticity it's a process, right? It's a day by day thing, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
But then if I could say that I achieved it, it would mean no matter what I look back and saw in my life, that was what was to be, because it was the thing that was real.
Right. Right. You know, as I reflect on this, I'm like, and I've done a lot of work. I know not everyone can pick out the gems unless they've like done some work to define that, you know, what they have gone through was actually what they needed to go through in order to learn what they needed to learn in order to serve in the way that they are uniquely built to serve. So yeah, it's definitely a process. Some other things to think about, you know, what are the things that you did that mattered? And that's a hard one because we don't always know how what we do matters in the big picture. But I tend to think if I helped someone, right? If I saw a result of my effort and someone was transformed by that, someone, you know, learned something new or was able to use something in a new way, that matters. And it's these collection of small acts of service and kindness that add up over time. And that's maybe what really matters most to me, is not necessarily being famous or internationally recognized, or but did what I do, how I showed up, did it matter? And is there anyone else who'd be willing to share what came up with for them? It's okay if it's really okay. It's all good.
I have something. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Shelley.
So my mission in life is to create a happier world. So if I'm able to inspire people to realize that it's more important to be happy now, because with that happiness comes all the success that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And if you're postponing happiness to until after you're successful, then you're going to waste a lot of time. And so for people that come to your webinars, it's perfect because it's little bits of actually how to get happier in my life right now. So it just works perfectly with my whole philosophy.
Mm. It's so good. That's why we're a good team. Yes. Thank you, Shelley. Thinking deeply about our own life purpose and what brings us fulfillment helps us align with what we are doing currently, with what we want to be doing with the rest of our lives. And this in turn creates awareness about the directions our lives are heading and how we are dedicating our time each day. And with this in mind, the question we may need to ask ourselves is whether the lives we are living truly reflects the proper choices we have made, or are those choices getting us to where we really want to be? Our work-life balance is a lot like that seesaw. Each of our actions or activities in one area of our life, no matter how small or big, causes a small or big shift somewhere else. So let's introduce a definition for work-life balance that we will use for the remainder of this webinar. And now's a good time to take out activity sheet number 1, finding the balance point. We'll be filling in the different areas on this worksheet throughout the webinar. So what I'm going to be asking you to do is please record the definition of work-life balance at the bottom of the activity sheet as I read it aloud slowly. I think it's also going to come up here on the screen. Work-life balance is the dynamic relationship between achievement, fulfillment, and the factors that influence our choices and decisions in these 2 areas. I'm writing it down for myself too. Choices and decisions in these 2 areas. Achievement is primarily about doing, such as getting things done and meeting goals and obligations. Fulfillment is about being, such as feeling satisfied about your relationships and contributions. So do we have any volunteers that would like to share their thoughts about the definition? What do you notice about this definition? What's important about the need to balance our doing with our being? I'll pop in on that if no one is jumping. You know, what I recognize about this definition, about, finding that balance between doing and being, is that it is going to be unique to each person. And I think that, that unique balance between doing and being it's that, you know, it's our personal, unique little sweet spot that satisfies you know, our humanity, our ego, our human need to be needed, to be of service, to, you know, have that proof of you know of our work and our service. And then there's also that being, right, that like that feeling satisfied, that that feeds our emotional self, that, you know, that inside of that we also recognize that it feels good, and that we have that that self-esteem, that feeling good about ourselves, that feeling happy, as Shelley was talking about, that, and you know, what are those factors that we do that contribute to our feeling good, right? So finding that sweet spot. Any other thoughts? Anyone else have thoughts that came up for them about that definition? All right, then we'll just move right along. Like I said, work-life balance looks different for everybody. So now you're going to personalize what work-life balance means to you. So on your activity sheet, please write the label achievement to the left of the person standing in the center of the circle on your sheet. So on the left, you'll put achievement on top. And then write the label fulfillment to the right of the person standing at the center of the circle. And now write down a word or draw a symbol or an icon representing what these two labels mean to you. You can draw the symbols or write the words in the person's hands on the applicable side. So I'll just give you a couple of examples to get you started. On the achievement side, the person could be holding a diploma to represent achievement, or a bag of money to represent financial success. Or you could just write the words. And on the fulfillment side, the person could be holding a large heart or a wrapped gift to represent the importance of relationships and sharing with others. And I'm going to set a timer and give us a minute to think about it, to doodle some things down. And there is no wrong, right? It's just whatever comes up for you. And here we go. It'll take about a minute. And we'll take about another 30 seconds and bring your doodling to a close. All right, let's come back. Okay, does anyone want to share what they drew or wrote on their activity sheet and what it represents for them?
Okay, this is Holly, and I'll go. I think it's pretty hilarious what I actually drew because for achievement, I have a little cartoon character running. And then as far as fulfillment, she's laying down. Back. You have to be on mute. I am on mute. That's my daughter next to me. She has her phone on.
Hey, Clancy.
It's unmuted now.
It's so good to see your name here. That's awesome.
It's muted now.
So repeat that again, Holly. So on the achievement time side, it's reading, and on the fulfillment side, it's laying down.
Yep.
I love it. That's pretty much it, right?
I know, and I just sit here and laughing at myself. So I really love the yin and the yang sign. Uh-huh. And this, Shelley will remember this, but maybe nobody else will. We, one of these we did months ago was with the circles that showed whether you were focusing your energy outside of you or inside of you. And I also drew those 2 circles.
Yeah.
Showing, you know, it's like achievement seems to be sort of geared out, and fulfillment really is geared inward for me.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else have some thoughts they'd like to share about what came up for them in that exercise?
I do.
Yay. Thank you, Shelley.
So on the achievement side, I wrote author and thought leader, and I drew a little book in his hand that's got my name on the spine. And then on the fulfillment side, he's holding a globe, and I wrote happier world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very good. And so that work-life balance is finding that sweet spot between the achievement of your, you know, your book and the prestige, the authority that comes with that, and the fulfillment of how it supports the transformation of the world, and the good feeling that comes with that, leaving that kind of legacy. Yeah, but that's a big vision that's coming up for you, Shelley. That's really cool. Go ahead.
The best thing about it is it's easier to create a work-life balance if the thing that you're passionate about, you can really weave in throughout all the rest of your life. Because I'm all about happiness, I take that with me everywhere.
Yeah. So so that is your definition of success, right? When you create that sustainable joy throughout your day and support others, you know, you're spreading that is, you get to love what you do, right? And I know when I was working in professional theater, that was it. It was like, oh, I got paid to do what I love to do. And I mean, that what it really comes down to is like, if you love what you do, then it doesn't feel like work. And you can feel really good about the work that you do. And so those are really those are powerful insights. Thank you, Shelley. Anyone else? You know, I'll share that I put it's interesting to me the programming that's coming up. You know, there's a lot of old like programming and shadows and stuff, and so when I just like think generally on the achievement side, I have things like books. And I didn't draw. I'm more of a writer than a drawer. Books, degrees, money, titles, tenure. Those are things that, my brain typically associates with achievement, right? Those accolades, those things that you can point to and say, see, this is my proof, right? And then on the balance side, there's like hearts, and there's stars and dogs and dancing and music and play and silliness. And it's like just this lighter side that is joyful generally and present to, the dynamics in that moment, right? So what is interesting to me is to notice that in my programming and my thinking, that these prestigious titles and accolades, they really, if they're not in balance with the joy, then they can be kind of empty, right? You work so hard, but you're not feeling good. You're not feeling like what you thought you would feel when you achieved it, unless it's something you really love. And so it's like that's a powerful insight. All right. Anyone else like to share? Okay. So now, I guess, Shelley, we'll move to slide 7, I think it is. So now that you're going to take a pulse on your current work-life balance. So now look at worksheet number 1 again, and notice that the balancing board the person is standing on has a 0 in the middle and the number 10 at each end. Now, ideally, a balance between achievement and fulfillment is what is desired. But as we've discovered, balance is ever changing. So how you rate these today may well be different in a month. But let's see how things stand currently in your life. So please draw a mark and or write a number along the left-hand scale that represents where you are currently in overall satisfaction with your achievement level. And then when you've done that, do the same thing on the fulfillment side of the drawing over to the right. Okay, and do we have any volunteers who want to share their ratings and what they mean to you?
Okay, this is Holly again.
Yay.
So I did this specifically on one thing. I decided to do it on one of the things that I'm doing as far as I'm a little bit older, so I'm semi-retired. So I did it on what I'm really working on is physical health and working out. So I decided to do it on my, like with my body being a job. So I would say where I am with achievement is I'm probably a 6 or a 7 with where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you talk about the fulfillment, I am up near a 10. So it's interesting where I'm putting that when I think about how I feel about it versus how it looks outside me.
Thank you, Holly. Anyone else?
I'm pretty low on each side because, I have a lot of work to do, but it seems like I'm pretty balanced between working toward the goal and and bringing the happiness with me wherever I go. I'm
Mhm.
pretty well balanced on that. It's
Yes.
just a matter of extending both sides out further.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah. And you sound really balanced, and I see you as very balanced, as someone who's doing your internal work and your external work. And as you were sharing, it brought up this image for me. Back when I taught dance, when I was teaching dance every day, and balance, right? If you're doing ballet or modern, you might get asked to stick your leg out behind you and hold it for 30 seconds while making it all look really graceful, right? And I learned a trick. So your share reminded me of this balance trick that I learned when I was being a dancer and had to like balance my heavy limbs in a specific way for a specific amount of time. And what helped me was to imagine that. So, if I had my leg stretched out behind me, I would also have, one of my arms stretched out in front of me and maybe another arm stretched out to the side. And if I could like mentally visualize sending energy equally, like stretching a rubber band, so sending that energy equally out through all of my limbs and out through the top of my head, and just like, focus on stretching in all the directions, then I could do it. But it was like, but there was this equanimity, there was this, I can't think of a better word. And what you described in your life, right? On the scale, it might look like low numbers, but it is stretching in equanimity. So you are balanced and you are stretching internally and externally at a similar pace, which is keeping you in balance. That's a really great share. And thank you for that. Help me to remember that trick. Okay, so where am I? All right. So we already did that, and we've talked about it. Okay, so yeah, I have another metaphor for balance. This is another good metaphor. So as babies, when we first learn to stand, we tend to fall down a lot so that we can discover the edges of our equilibrium and learn the consequence of each movement we make. Right? Every action has a reaction, and it takes time to learn, what that is. With time and experience, we build habits and strengths that help us maintain our balance without having to think about it, right? Because we don't think about it now, right? We just walk. But it took us a long time as, young humans to figure that out, right? And we learned from the consequences. And the same thing with dancing, right? It's like you learn as you go. And work-life balance is a dynamic relationship. So each person must decide what achievement and fulfillment looks like in their own life. If we don't make work-life balance a priority, sometimes the negative influences that fill up our lives urge us to say no to work-life balance and yes to work-life imbalance. What are the consequences of work-life imbalance? And how would our lives be different or better if we made work-life balance more of a priority? This is what we'll look at next. Work-life imbalance is a challenge to many, many people. And as a result, there have been a lot of studies done on that, and I'm going to share some of that data with you. So now is a good time to take out worksheet number 2. And you may want to take notes about the research I'm about to share by filling in the missing words for item number 1 and making some notes for item number 2. A study by the career website vault.com revealed that 69% of respondents said that the amount of vacation time they received is not sufficient. A study by the Families and Work Institute revealed that chronically overworked employees have an adverse effect on business outcomes. They are more likely to make mistakes, resent their employers, and resent coworkers for not working as hard as they do. Multitasking is a key contributor to employees feeling overwhelmed. According to the Corporate Executive Board, only 30% of employees feel they have a good work-life balance. A recent study among 50,000 global workers indicated that work-life balance ranked as the second most important workplace attribute, second only to compensation. So what are the implications of this research for each of us, for our families, and for the companies we work for? Please write your thoughts for number 2 on the worksheet. And I'm gonna set the timer for about a minute, and I'm gonna fill this out too, and then we can do some sharing. All right, let's come back. So now let's talk about this research as it relates to your views on work-life imbalance. So please refer to question number 3 on worksheet number 2, and think about what the research is saying about the consequences of work-life imbalance and how it relates to your own life, and write the answer on the activity sheet for question number 3. And just a side note, the term consequences refers to a negative result here, although it can also be viewed in a positive light when seen as benefits related to work-life balance. But in terms of imbalance, what are the consequences? I'll give it another 30 seconds and then open it up for sharing. All right, let's come back. Does anyone feel comfortable sharing your answers?
Well, I always wait for Holly because she always goes first, but I guess I'll go first.
Thank you.
Oh, I came up with the implications of the research were that our children and our family life get neglected.
Mm-hmm.
We stress out, and that leads us to illness. We are out of touch with who we are and out of touch with what we want. And the consequences of the work-life imbalance in my life back in the day when I was imbalanced like that were all of the above. Like every single one of those things affected my life, and it was awful, and none of us were happy.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. I think we have a similar story, Shelley. Yeah, one of the things that occurred to me, one of the notes I took was the implications of the research are that corporations are not paying attention to work-life balance. And we've seen some examples of that in the media lately. I mean, some of these miracle workplaces, where everything seems so great and service is so fast. A lot of times the employees are not given, a healthy number of breaks or enough time, or, what the demands on the body are, just not realistic. So, that's something that came up for me as I was reflecting on the research is there's a disconnect between, what the corporation wants and what is in the highest for their employees, which is actually the source of the energy to create what they want. I'll talk about my story in a second here, but the consequences of work-life balance in my life is that balls get dropped, relationships get neglected, my body gets neglected, I neglect myself. When again, back in the day. And then, the consequences of work-life balance in my life are more, better productivity and continuity and focus. And so, it's like, it just overall general better mental and physical health when I'm, in a better work-life balance. Anyone else want to pop in with their reflections before we move on? Let's just take a minute or two, make any additional notes on the worksheet, anything that popped up for you.
Yeah, this is Holly. So I just really liked everything you guys said and could echo that. But I got down to just the words of it's like when going on autopilot and just pushing for the sake of pushing. That if you try doing that in art, when you're making art, nothing matters anymore. It just doesn't matter because you're just producing something to be producing something, and it doesn't have any feeling to it. And then when things are balancing and you can really stop and be in your life. And I think this goes back to when I was talking in the very beginning about this authenticity, that if I can really be here and really feel what I'm doing, all kinds of great things come out of it. And the last thing I touch on is that entrepreneurs, right now we're sort of in a space where a lot of people are looking to the internet to see how do you become an entrepreneur, or they're trying to mimic something everybody else is doing. But a true entrepreneur is always walking to their own beat. They are in themselves and moving that along. And there's no way you can do that if you are not being authentic into yourself and pushing to try to make achievement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a call to your creativity, to something that is coming through you that's bigger than yourself. And when you're in alignment and integrity with your authenticity, it's not, I'll say for myself, sometimes, there are days when I'm like, is this going anywhere? But then it's like, the answer is, of course it is. And there's a quote I'm not going to be able to get. Oh, it's on the tip of my brain, but essentially it's like the overnight sensations that you see, the people that seem to come from nowhere with this amazing invention or this new idea that's expressed, in this so innovative way through a book or a movie or, whatever it is. It can seem miraculous and like it came from nowhere, but if you actually take a look at that person's story, they've been working on it for decades most of the time, even when they weren't making a lot of money, even when they didn't have a lot of support, because it was just something that came so uniquely through them. It was their mission to be able to paint that masterpiece, and they moved on faith, and faith that has a real. It can really, that's where we can lean into to find that work-life balance that supports our highest expression. I think let's go ahead, Shelley, move to slide 9, because we've just covered how work-life imbalance has clear consequences, especially negative ones. In fact, some of them are pretty serious, perhaps even life-threatening. And I'm chuckling because this was something that came up for me. But now let's look at the consequences of work-life balance. What happens when our lives are in balance? So let's refer to item number 4 on worksheet number 2 and identify what you think the consequences of work-life balance are. And think about the consequences in terms of yourself individually, your families, and your companies as you write your thoughts on the activity sheet. And in this case, consequences refers to a positive result here, like a benefit. And whenever you're ready, whoever would like to share what comes up for them around item number 4, the consequences or benefits of a work-life balance in your life are?
I liked what you said earlier, Wendy, about better mental and physical health. That's a for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's most days I can feel good about my progress.
Mm-hmm.
I have a stronger faith and like a stronger connection with myself, with the people around me, and with my inner being, or however you want to look at that, with the universe. And that gives me greater confidence and courage to keep challenging myself to do more bigger things. And then that leads to being more likely to have the positive impacts that I'm trying to have in the world. So it all builds one on top of the other.
Thank you. So well put. It's like when the consequences of being in work-life balance is you're not in your way anymore. You're not blocking yourself. And so, the blocks that come your way, you overcome more easily. You're healthier, you're lighter, you're more in touch with yourself, a greater sense of spirituality. You have better relationships. You communicate more clearly and more compassionately. Children, here's the thing. It's like another benefit for families. Like when you're working on your own work-life balance as a mother or a father or a grandparent, children learn the benefits of work-life balance because it's modeled by their parents. And parents can have more time with their children. Families have an opportunity to have closer relationships. And for companies, you've got a more productive workforce. I mean, I think, it's like, if you're burning out your workforce, it's like shooting yourself in the foot as a business. If you'll have a happier workforce, you'll have less stress on the job when we're in better work-life balance, less illness and sick time, greater retention, better ideas, and innovation coming from your workforce. So let's just take another minute or two and make any additional notes on the worksheet. All right, and let's bring our journaling to a natural stopping point. Thank you. Our research shows us that a majority of workers don't feel they get enough vacation time and generally feel overwhelmed. Overworked employees do not make for good bottom line business. The number of workers who feel they have a good work-life balance is dropping. Work-life balance takes effort. It requires paying more attention to our lives than we may be used to. It may feel uncomfortable, awkward, or unnatural at first. Some people may experience shame or guilt if they are not successful at improving their work-life balance. But remember, it's a process and it takes time. To really understand work-life balance, we need to look beyond what we want to achieve and how we want to be fulfilled and look at the factors that influence our work-life balance. The power to improve your work-life balance lies in your ability to recognize what is minimizing your work-life balance and what you can do to maximize it. But before we go to the next segment, I have a very special story that I'd like to share with you. One of the most iconic TV commercials I remember seeing as a kid was that one in which the blonde lady sings about how she can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never ever let you forget you're a man. Seriously, those are the lyrics. Now, obviously, this ad wasn't just selling perfume. It was selling the you can have it all lifestyle to a new generation of women who had previously been shut out of serious positions within corporate America and who were largely relegated to the domestic realm. But thanks to the women's lib movement of the 1970s, now both realms were open to women at the same time. This commercial was more than just a commercial. It was a sign of the times. The fine folks at the now defunct Charles of the Ritz Company were trying to attach their product to the now defunct idea that it's a breeze for any woman to be a successful professional, a doting wife, an attentive mother, a gourmet cook, a meticulous homemaker, and a satin gown wearing sex kitten, all at the same time. Here's what the ad was really saying. I can bring home the bacon. Nice double entendre, Anjali. The first meaning of the word bacon in this line is obviously money. But perhaps this line would have been more accurate had it said, I can bring home 73% of the same bacon you can bring home, even though I work just as hard for my bacon as you did for yours. The second entendre of the word bacon here is actually bacon. The message being, yes, dear, I'll stop at the market on my way home from work and pick you up some bacon. Fry it up in a pan. The point here is clear. That bacon ain't gonna cook itself. And never, ever let you forget you're a man. After I've worked all day, shopped, cooked, cleaned up, and read the kids a bedtime story, there's nothing I'd rather do than spray on some atomized pheromones, aka Anjali, slip into that Some Like It Hot white satin number I have lying around and rock your world. Anjali, the 8-hour perfume for the 24-hour woman. This is the official tagline of the commercial. Now, maybe it's just me, but the subtext here seems to be something more subversive. There seems to be an implied threat here. You want it all, sweetheart? Well, here it is. Be careful what you wish for. Now, little did I know when I was a little girl watching those kinds of commercials and watching my mother do her best Superwoman impression, that my little mind and ego were taking in all those messages and developing some shadow beliefs about myself and about the world. And as I grew up, I began to make choices based on those beliefs. And by the time I hit my 20s, I was already a raging workaholic. And I was definitely out of integrity with my work-life balance. I looked for teaching jobs that would allow me to bring my kids to the workplace, which in many ways wasn't fair to my kiddos because I couldn't really be present as their mom when I was working, or I would lose the job. And I unconsciously passed on the same messages I had picked up as a child. After work, I would be exhausted and plop them in front of the TV the same way I had been plopped. I wasn't being the best mom I could be, and I beat myself up for not being very mentally present with them. As my inner resentments grew, I became more and more emotionally distanced from my husband. Well, yes, I could bring home the bacon. I could fry it up in a pan, but I couldn't live up to his fantasies, and I stopped wanting to never let him forget he's a man. And it got worse. After my divorce and a year of juggling joint custody, the kids sat across from me at a family therapy session and told me they wanted to live full-time with their dad. I felt like a huge failure, and I was drowning in the shame, guilt, and embarrassment of not being what a woman is supposed to be. And now I had child support payments to make. So instead of dealing with all the pain and the shame, I took to the road and I became a traveling saleswoman. And that was the end of any semblance of work-life balance. It was all work and no life. In 2011, I was the highest grossing sales agent for my company, and they sent me to an all-inclusive resort as my reward. But I felt guilty that I wasn't working, and I felt fearful because I wasn't making money when I was on vacation, and I kept hearing a small voice inside saying I needed to find balance. I needed to change jobs. I needed to ask for help, but I kept ignoring that inner voice until I couldn't anymore. One day, my leg developed an infection from a small cut I had received from tripping in the stock room. I ignored it until it swelled to the size of a golf ball. I didn't want to take the time off work, so I went to an urgent care doc who prescribed antibiotics, and I went right back to work. In a few days, it was clear the medicine wasn't working. my left leg had swollen to twice the size of my right. So begrudgingly, I went back to the urgent care doc who lanced it, gave me a stronger prescription and a warning. If this swelling doesn't go down, the next step is amputation. That's how strong my shadow beliefs were. And that's what it took to finally convince me to take bed rest and allow myself to heal. As I was lying in my hotel room with my leg raised to distract myself from the fearful voice yelling that I should be working, I began to read a book by Debbie Ford called The Right Questions. Years earlier, in the midst of my divorce, I had read The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And now, in my darkest moment, I asked for help and I received a very powerful answer. Integrative coaching is your new path. Do the work to come into balance. Not only will you heal and transform your life, but your new job can be to help others going through the same thing. I made a commitment to train with Debbie Ford and certify as a breakthrough shadow coach. Break through the shadow. To really understand what breakthrough shadow coaching is about, it helps to understand a little more about shadow beliefs. A term originally coined by Swiss psychologist Carl Jung and later adopted by thought leaders such as Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, and Debbie Ford. A shadow belief is an unconscious, limiting belief that influences our entire lives, telling us what we can and cannot do, and it drives all of our behaviors. They are these negative beliefs hidden from our conscious view, and they are the biggest culprits robbing us from having what we most want in our life. Shadow beliefs keep that inner critic fueled. If you have an inner critic running from morning until night, it's likely that your limiting beliefs sound something like this. I'm stupid. I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. Why bother? Because I'm going to fail. It's too hard. It's more important to be needed than focus on me. I have to be the good girl. Yeah, I have heard those voices in my head. How about you? Shadow beliefs are formed early in life, under the age of 10. Usually what happens is that we're faced with a situation or circumstance we simply didn't know how to handle or process, and we came to a decision or a conclusion. That decision or conclusion, especially if it was a negative one, created a shadow belief about ourselves or the world around us. Once that shadow belief was formed, it was stored away in our unconscious operating system, telling us what we could or could not have or achieve in our life. And here's the crazy part. We might even draw in the exact circumstances we're trying to avoid because that's how the shadow works. It keeps showing up until we've brought our shadows into the light of our awareness and shifted our perspective. So let me give you an example of the shadow at work. While you were sitting at your desk at work, your coworker came over to you and asked you for some help. You knew you were too busy, but you couldn't say no. Why? Well, that limiting belief in your head told you that it was more important to be needed than to take care of yourself. You didn't realize it was a limiting belief. You just told yourself that you'd find time for yourself later, which you never do. As you reflect back on your childhood, you realize that your mom was always doing the same thing, taking care of everyone and never herself. She even told you that you had to say yes to helping your friend with the bake sale because you might get left out the next time. She told you that it didn't matter if you were tired. It was more important to be needed. Up until this moment, you forgot about that incident. You stuffed it away. You never even realizing how it might resurface in your future. Shadow beliefs can benefit us in some ways, but if they are keeping us from living the life we most want, then they are limiting. The instinct of the ego, when we discover a belief, is to push it away. But like a beach ball being pushed under the water, our shadow beliefs tend to fly back into our face. So what do? Yes, we break through our shadows and bring them into the light. The goal is not to push them away, but to make us aware of our beliefs, stop judging them, and shift our conscious beliefs. So instead of hating this part of yourself, you can learn to recognize your limiting belief and to start to shift it to a more conscious and balanced belief. Instead of saying yes next time, you might decide to say no, but offer to help again when you have more time. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to apologize. You can simply embrace your new belief that it's okay to take care of yourself and your work first. It frees you from being tied down to your outdated beliefs and helps you build confidence and self-esteem. Ultimately, making peace with your shadow beliefs is the key to living that happy, balanced, and fulfilled life you've been looking for. The process of uncovering and making peace with our shadow beliefs doesn't have to be difficult. It can be fun, like a treasure hunt where we find the missing pieces that complete our life. Join me in making peace with your shadow today. Imagine if, instead of being controlled by your shadow, you could step out of the darkness and into the light of awareness that will lead you to manifesting what your soul longs for. Whether it's more money, a healthier body, a new job, a better relationship, or a more meaningful career. Breakthrough Shadow Coaching is a goal-oriented program that will free you from the limitations that impact and sabotage every aspect of your life. If you are ready to dismantle the blocks that keep you stuck, frustrated, and unfulfilled, whether you want to work on a single issue or a long-term goal, this program will inform, empower, and inspire you to gain access to your inner wisdom and increase self-awareness and trust. Unveil the highest vision for yourself, your life, and your future. Dismantle the old beliefs, thoughts, and patterns that keep you stuck. Uncover and resolve core issues that stand in the way of you reaching your goals. Be more decisive and take action to manifest your vision. Achieve a goal that's been eluding you. Increase feelings of authenticity, confidence, and self-worth. If you want a proven structure that guarantees success, ensures deep and lasting change, and will move you in the direction of your dreams in just 12 weeks, then the time is now for Breakthrough Shadow Coaching. Enjoy 15% off if you register by August 31st. And here are the details. To ensure that you create lasting change in your life, you'll receive 12 recorded sessions, including instruction and interactive exercises, 12 worksheets, 12 weekly coaching assignments, 6 live group community calls, 6 30-minute laser coaching calls, the private Facebook group, 24/7 access to the private course website, and access to just-in-time coaching from your personal integrative coach to support your transformational process. This program is running from September 12th through December 5th, 2019. We'll take the week of Thanksgiving off. And the price is one lump sum of $11.99 or 3 monthly payments of $4.25. If you register by August 31st, you can pay $9.99 or 3 monthly payments of $3.55. And if you're not sure if coaching will help you, well, let's find out. Coaching is not a luxury, and it's not a response to crisis. It's about achieving your goals, living your vision, and creating a container to hold you even during the tough times. Coaching begins with a conversation. It begins with understanding your particular circumstances to see if working together we can achieve your goals. I only work with clients who are ready to commit and make the changes necessary to live an extraordinary life. Now, there is no charge for my exploratory consultation. Just book a soul purpose discovery session on my online calendar, and I look forward to connecting with you. Go to thewayoftruth.live/10543 to book your personal shadow talk with me today, because there is an early bird booking bonus. Just go into the calendar by this Saturday, August 17th, and get your discovery call scheduled, and I will send you a coupon code so you can receive a powerful $97 Spark Your Motivation online course for free. Now, you don't need to have your call with me before Saturday. Just get it booked. Write down the code and go there right after this webinar. It's https://thewayoftruth.live/10543. Thank you so much. And now let's return to our Finding Balance training with part 3. What influences my work-life balance? If work-life balance was easy, we'd probably all have it. But it is a dynamic, ever-changing process that can seem more elusive than attainable. And there are many things in life that create obstacles between you and work-life balance. In part 2, we looked at some of the consequences of work-life balance and imbalance. In this section, we're going to dig a little deeper and identify some of the internal and external factors that can influence your ability to improve your work-life balance. So now let's try something right now. Everyone, please stand up. We can't see each other, so this is good. Stand up wherever you are. And now lift one leg off the ground and balance it on the other as best as you can for 30 seconds. I'm starting the timer now. 30 seconds, balancing on one foot. All right, 5 more seconds. We can do it. Okay, stop. All right, sit down. What things influenced your inability to maintain your balance? So I'm going to assume that that might have been hard. We had a little more inability than ability. What are the things that influenced your inability to maintain your balance? And I want you to consider internal influences, those things that relate to a person's thoughts and feelings. So for example, internal thoughts like, I can't do this, or I don't think my leg is strong enough for this. And now consider external influences, those things that relate to a person's external world. For example, external factors could be standing on an uneven surface, or someone or something bumping into you. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to stand again and switch to balance on the other leg. And do your best. Let's see. Do your best to balance for 30 seconds. Here we go. "15 seconds to go. You can do it. And 5 seconds. And stop, sit back down. So what things positively influenced your ability to maintain your balance? Consider internal factors that are positively supporting your ability or desire to keep your balance, such as thoughts and feelings. For example, internal thoughts like, I can do this, or imagining yourself as a tree with deep roots that provide a feeling of stability. And now observe the external factors that are positively supporting your ability to keep your balance. So, for example, external factors could be leaning on someone or something, or calling on skills from a yoga class to keep your balance. So we've been exploring positive and negative influences on our ability to balance. So let's apply all of this to your work-life balance. Please take out worksheet number 1 again and locate the 4 small boxes in each corner of the sheet. And I'd like to ask you to write inside the 4 boxes as follows. In the upper left box, write positive external influences. In the upper right box, write negative external influences. In the lower left box, write positive internal influences. And in the lower right box, write negative internal influences. Everyone has various factors that influence their work-life balance. So let's identify the factors that you feel personally influence your ability to find work-life balance and place them within each of these 4 quadrants of your work-life diagram. And I want to be sure to point out that the same influence can be positive in one person's life and negative in another person's life. So, for example, in a work environment, one person might have a very flexible work schedule where their work times are different every week. And to them, a flexible work schedule may be a positive influence because it gives them free time during the day to run errands and to have lunch with friends. For someone else, a flexible work schedule may be a negative influence because they have difficulty planning from week to week, or they have childcare issues that work better with a consistent schedule. So now it's your turn to see which positive and negative influences affect your work-life balance. So on worksheet number 1, please notice the general categories on the top of the worksheet and place the examples in the positive quadrant or negative quadrant as applicable. If the category doesn't apply, disregard it. If the category is too broad, and you can think of a more specific example, go ahead and write down examples that are specific to your life. So examples might include family, friendships, home, money and finances, career, obligations, resources, employer, employees, boss, stakeholders. So go ahead and on the top 2 quadrants, go ahead and fill in or disregard. Okay, and we can always come back to that. I want to move to the next. Next on the bottom half of the sheet, notice the general categories and place the examples in the positive quadrant or negative quadrant as applicable. Again, if the category doesn't apply, disregard it. And if the category is too broad, think of more specific examples that apply to your life. So examples might include habits, emotions, life purpose, values, knowledge, mindset, beliefs, priorities, skills, perspectives, passion, experience, the past, goals, and self-awareness. So let's take some time with those 2 bottom quadrants. All right, and let's come back together. And who would like to share some of their influences? Tell us first what quadrant it's in and the specific influences.
So I think this is a telling exercise because, like you were saying earlier, how some of your programming was coming through on that other exercise we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at what I have on the top section. I have like money on the negative exterior influences side, and that's not good. That's previous programming, and that's what keeps me in a poverty mindset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then down below on the negative internal influences, I have the past, and then I have a lot of them that were on the line. They're both like my habits. Some of my habits are good, some of them are bad. Some of my experiences contribute in a good way and some in a bad way, and my emotions. Almost everything was on a line for me.
Interesting. And yes, you're right. Really, really telling. So when you noticed that the money was on the negative external influences side, and so that, the implications, what are the implications of the negative influences, right? If you have that and it's coming up, you're putting money over there, you're right. The implication is it keeps you in that scarcity mindset and keeps you operating from those shadow beliefs around money. So yeah, no, these exercises really kind of help start to bring things to the surface that we weren't aware of. Thank you. Thank you. Holly, did anything come up for you that you'd like to share? We can also talk about what are the positive.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, just so that everybody knows who's watching this, I don't have the list in front of me that you're all working from, so I may be coming a little bit, they are my own words rather than the words that you were putting in there. But I'm with Shelley, where I could see there's which way the traits are going. It's almost like I could put a list down the middle, and then depending upon how I'm using it is whether it's going to go negative or whether it's going to go positive. So the first thing I thought about, the external positive, is I wrote in education, support systems. And that is very dependent on my internal positivity, because if I'm not willing to ask for help, if I'm not willing to, if I'm just going to be going on my own engines of that I know the answer to everything, I'm probably not going to be able to be successful at whatever I'm doing. I'll keep getting what I've been getting if I keep doing what I've been doing.
Right.
And then when I got over into the negative external versus internal, I love this. I put bullies down under external. Because bullies just are, that'll be that thing when I have really negative voice coming outside of me, and that can really undermine me. But when I got to the internal, this is what part of what you've been touching on, and it just goes directly to Debbie Ford and talking about the shadow, that if I have all these unchallenged belief systems in me that's going on inside me, and I am not addressing them, they will drive the bus. There's no question they will drive the bus. So, and this is a whole thing that I would just at this point put in how beneficial life coaching and doing all these exercises has been with me, because the first thing is I had to become aware of what I was doing, and that goes to the education. And once I have become aware about what it is that I do, where it is that I am, and where it is that I want to go, then I can actually start making those internal changes that can affect the external and back and forth. So it's like, just for one little example I'd give you, how I am eating affects everything that I'm doing. So it can go either way. If either I'm eating to support myself or I'm eating in a way that is undermining me. And what I've been working on is trying to hit things. I'm trying to be very deliberate in my actions and very honest with myself, trying to get honesty with myself about what it is that I'm really doing. because I sink my own boat faster than anybody could ever sink it for me.
That is so insightful. Thank you so much, Holly. Yeah, as you were sharing, some examples came to mind. External influences are those factors that are found in a person's environment and may be beyond a person's immediate control. And that still they can influence work-life balance in either a positive or a negative way. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. Negative, distracting, a mean or demanding boss, a sudden expense that causes you to have to work more hours. Or positive, supportive, easy access to business opportunities or resources, a supportive family, no mortgage payment. Internal influences are those factors that are inside a person and generally, not always, but generally within the control of a person. And many of these internal influences relate to mindset. So some possible examples: a negative or distracting mindset, scarcity mindset, poverty mindset, limiting beliefs, a victim mentality, poor health habits, or a lack of awareness. Or a positive, supportive mindset. It is a leadership mindset, a strong education or experience, belief in oneself, courage. So we've looked at the benefits of improving work-life balance and the factors that support us or distract us from doing so. And now it's time to put this knowledge into action. Once you become aware of the negative influences that influence your work-life balance, you are one step closer to doing something about them. By becoming aware of the positive influences, you discover how resourceful you actually are. So now let's take out worksheet number 3. Working from activity sheet number 1, identify one negative influence, internal or external, that is a hindrance to a better work-life balance, and write it in the space provided on worksheet number 3. So I'll just repeat that again. Identify one negative influence, internal or external, that is a hindrance to a better work-life balance, and write it in the space provided on activity sheet number 3. The negative factor I want to minimize or eliminate is so yeah, pick an influence that you want to work on minimizing or eliminating. Maybe choose the influence that is easiest to shift or one that will have the biggest impact. And now identify one positive influence, internal or external, from activity sheet number 1 that supports a better work-life balance, and write it in the space provided on worksheet number 3. So here, pick an influence that you want to maximize or develop more of. By narrowing your focus and selecting just 2 influences to work on, you won't overwhelm yourself. You can put more effort into making only these changes. And then when you're ready, you can pick 2 more influences to work on, one negative and one positive. Now, write down one action you'll take to minimize the negative influence and one action to maximize the positive influence. All right, who would like to share what came up when you were selecting a negative and positive influence, or when you were identifying an action, and what will need to happen in order for you to commit to this? Oh, that's a lot. So I'll slow down. I'll go back. Who would like to share what came up when you were selecting a negative and positive influence or identifying an action? I'll share because it was just, I wrote the same thing. The negative factor I want to minimize or eliminate is, and the positive factor I want to maximize or enhance is, I wrote my habits in both boxes. And so, so choosing the actions, I wasn't sure where to put the actions because it's all coming together, right? It's really, really interesting. But this was specifically around my health. And so, I wrote, so the action I want to take to minimize, or eliminate, I'm writing things like, getting back to my good, healthy habits of, tracking what I eat and, counting my steps and getting back into the gym and stretching every day and dancing every day and meeting new people every day. And these are habits. I'm actually prime. I have a lot of time opening up for me over the next couple of months to, insert these practices, these habits in again and reward myself for these healthy habits. So who else would like to share what came up for them?
Mine ran together like yours did, Wendy. And so it was more the action ran together. But so the negative thing that I want to eliminate is that scarcity mindset around money. And the positive factor that I want to maximize and I've been working on is self-awareness. And so the action in both cases then is to pay attention and be mindful so that I can become aware of those thoughts and beliefs when they come up, and then using meditation and visualization to turn them around into something that I actually do want.
Awesome. Holly, anything you wanted to share?
Okay, wait till you hear how noisy this is now. Can you hear that? That's a waterfall.
Oh, it sounds, it's very light.
Well, I'm very inspired by myself, I just have to say. Because, the thing I get, it's this reaching out for help. The reaching out for help and admitting when I don't know the answer to things, because I'm coming into some of these parts in my life and my relationships with people where I have been accommodating other people for such a long period of time. I've been being the good girl and trying to, meet everybody else's needs because that's what's worked best for me. But that worked out better when my kids were younger. So the big thrust for everything is, first it's being able to admit that I don't have the answer to things, or that I'm just in trouble and maybe not liking where my life is in this area, and then seeking the help, and not only seeking the help, but being open to actually receiving it.
Mm-hmm.
And to try different ideas maybe from other people, and admit that it's I don't know what's going on, stuff is changing for me and I don't know, and just to be able to say I don't know. And so asking from help from people that do know is so, it just makes me feel really good even talking about it, because it's like getting a guide who's going to help take you in a different direction. So that's really great. And then one, this is just really on a personal note that my job right now is I have been so overly responsible for everybody around me. It doesn't have anything to do with working. It's like my job has been being a parent. And so I am very distorted on what's my responsibility and what's other people's responsibility. And to be able to, like for an action, to say, well, what specifically is the action around that? I have to be able to slow down and stop long enough to look at the things that are scaring me, the things that are driving me. And the question really is this my responsibility or is it somebody else's? Because at this point, I've been doing all the work. I do my work, I'll do your work. And sometimes in conversations, I'll have both sides of the conversations with my family members. So that may come out of left field for y'all, but that's what I'm working on right now.
Well, what a powerful realization, and it's because things are coming up into your awareness, into the light of like, oh yeah, I've been overly responsible. I've been doing the work of the other person in the relationship. And so even just without even making it wrong, without any judgment, without any labels of, right or wrong or good or bad, just bringing that into your awareness, you now have a different choice. When you weren't aware of it, you didn't have a choice about it. It was just the default mode of the programming. So, so that right there can make a huge difference in the way that you show up inside of those relationships, right? What would, you're like, what would happen? What would happen if I didn't answer for the other person? I said my thing and let there be dead air and see what happens in that vacuum. I think it might the silence might be very loud. So I want to thank you for bringing that, because you're right that, your work, that is your work. That's been your primary career as the mom, right? And identifying the balance or imbalance inside of that work life. And, just to kind of sum up again, just work-life balance represents your relationship to 4 aspects of life: achievement, fulfillment, external influences, and internal influences. You can create a better balance by identifying what achievement and fulfillment look like for you and what you need to do to create a satisfying balance for yourself. So now I want to help you solidify the learning that has taken place in today's training. And to accomplish this, I'm going to ask you to offer a short laser phrase on what you've learned. So let's just give 30 seconds to ourselves and a short, and write it down, a short laser sentence on what you've learned, a phrase on what you've learned. All right. Who wants to start?
I will.
Okay.
So the main thing that I've learned here is even when your eyes are on the prize and you know what you need to be doing, you really need to be not beware, but be aware of all those shadow beliefs that are hiding underneath that are maybe hindering your progress, and you weren't even you. It's more of a struggle than it needs to be because we're not becoming shining the light, like you said,
Right.
on those things that are hiding from us.
Yeah, that is a powerful learning. Um, and that's kind of when it came up for me too. I mean, it's like it's so powerful. I've learned that when I raise my awareness, I can become more conscious of the beliefs that are driving my choices. So I can make healthier work-life balance choices. But yeah, the first step is recognizing where I'm out of balance, and then, getting curious, like doing a little digging. What's that limiting shadow belief underneath that, right? And then shifting to a more conscious belief to make more intentional conscious choices, as opposed to the sleepwalking choices, the autopilot choices. That wasn't a laser phrase, but thank you. Holly, did something come up for you?
There we go. So part of the thing too I've been working on, it's like the yin and yang is totally what life is all about. I mean, it's everything. That there isn't light without dark. So there isn't a positivity without negativity. And so when I get out of balance with things, that's what causes all the trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go back and do this whole thing over again because it got me stumped because it was talking about a workplace. And now then I'm going, oh, well, wait a minute. That's all I've been doing is taking care of my family. I mean, I could go do this whole thing all over again because I've been so out of balance with my family, so overdoing, so taking care of everybody else and not taking care of myself, putting me very last. And so I'm working on, the goal is balance. I don't want to, this is the other thing with shadow work, is that we don't throw any parts of ourselves away. The idea is to integrate them back in and hopefully into balance. It's like working at the balance, and the more balanced things are, the better my life is.
Right.
So isn't that interesting? I get to the very end and I go, oh, wait a minute. No, I got to start back at the beginning.
Well, I think you're so in tune because the suggested homework is to print extra copies of the worksheets and go through this process again.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? And to do it in other areas.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could do it with anything. Like you could do this with just your physical, where's my physical body at?
Right.
Where am I with that? Where am I? You could do it with a life wheel, with all the different parts of the life wheel, and look at it. So
that's, what? Oh, wow, I could create a whole 3-month course, like each week, doing this process on a different area of the life wheel. You just gave me a great idea. All right. Well, great work, everyone. Some significant shifts showed up during our class as you went through this process of identifying the positive and negative influences of your work-life balance. And this is just an example of what you can gain by looking at improving your work-life balance doing this process. So that is it for today. I want to thank you all for joining me on this webinar. I want to thank everyone who is watching this replay and participating on your own time. I hope you found this information valuable. And just as a reminder, Breakthrough Shadow Coaching is coming up from September 12th through December 5th, taking that week of Thanksgiving off. And all the details are right there. But I have to be honest, what I really want is to get you on the phone for your soul purpose discovery session, because maybe this isn't the program for you, but maybe there is something that is for you, that is a little better fit for your budget and your schedule and your lifestyle. We also have several memberships to choose from. So, and to find out if coaching is for you or what the right program is for you, that requires a conversation. And I hope I've made myself approachable, and you can imagine it being easy to talk to me on the phone as we do a soul purpose discovery session. And there is an early bird booking bonus. I would really, really, really like to give you a coupon code for a $97 Spark Your Motivation online course. But the call has to get booked. You don't have to have it, but it needs to be booked by this Saturday, the 17th. There's no purchase necessary to get that coupon code. So I would really encourage y'all to take advantage of it. Those of you who have not worked with me before and are maybe curious to see what that would be like. So thank you so much, everyone. This has been a great evening. Enjoy the full moon in Aquarius. It's been a blessing with you all. Have a great evening. Talk to you soon.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Holly. Bye, Wendy.
Yes.